So, right then, welcome to episode 1 of In the Trenches podcast. So, the idea when I kind of came up with this podcast was to speak to the people who are literally in the trenches every day, like running the business, doing a lot of the back and forward work, because a lot of the people on podcasters are the face of the brand, so to speak, but not like in the trenches, in the gears, winning the war every day. And so I wanted to really speak to those founders and kind of see like, what are they doing? How are things operating and the stresses that they go through every day? So our first guest, and privileged to have him here, is none other than Jeremy Pogue. Hands down, one of the best high ticket closers I think I've met. And I think it was a post or I saw somewhere, but I think you'd round about this year, or was it last year, you closed about $1 million in sales so far, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I'm really excited for this. And yeah, coming up on still just under a year. I think like in like a week or two, it'll be like the day that I took my first sales call last year. Yeah, coming up on about 1 million, which is pretty cool. So it's
big number to it.
Yeah. It's gonna be really exciting when I cross that. Just kind of like a bit of a tip of the hat to old Jeremy.
Got it. Have you got a reward in mind for when you hit that number?
I do. Yeah. And I've kind of been playing it out. Like I've been kind of visualizing it over and over and over in my head and kind of have like every detail kind of like laid out. So I've no doubt that like it'll happen. And when it does, I'm really excited to kind of live that out. I can go into a little bit more detail if you want. But absolutely, I think it is important to have specific rewards for like certain milestones.
Absolutely. I mean, I waited like a year almost to buy my first Rolex because I wanted it to mean something. Like I had the cash, but I needed a goal to hit. So do you mind sharing us and putting it out into the universe? What are you going to get yourself? What you got in mind?
Well, we'll kind of take it way back. 5 years ago, I was in between university, summer job. I moved like to this little tiny mountain town called Banff in Canada. And I was working at a hotel. And I was in this like, it's like a really fancy hotel, the Fairmont Banff Springs. And anyways, I was serving in a lounge, and it was like the Fairmont Gold Lounge, which is like the fanciest floor of the hotel. It's like $2,000 a night for a room. And there's this like private lounge. So I was in there, and I remembered like, that was kind of like when everything kind of started for me. Right before I moved out there that summer, my mom gave me Think and Grow Rich to read for the summer. And that was kind of like the first book that I ever like actually read for fun.
Classic.
Oh, it couldn't be more classic.
Yeah.
And I remember like I'd have split shifts. So I'd have like 4 hours of work in the morning. I'd have a 4-hour break and then 4 hours in the afternoon. And during that 4-hour break, pretty much every single day, I would go downstairs, use the gym, and then go to the pool and the hot tub where I would read Think and Grow Rich. And I remember just thinking to myself while I was like sitting in the hot tub, and like I can visualize myself there like 5 years ago right now, thinking like in the hot tub, and then also while I was serving people in the lounge, it's like, one day I'm going to be the one on the other side. One day I'm going to be the one being served. And
got it.
That's kind of like my milestone. So that's going to be my reward because it means a lot. And I know that like, it'll be, yeah, just like I said, a bit of a tip of the hat to younger Jeremy 5 years ago. So I've got the whole weekend planned out. There's a lot of like really cool mountains there. That was kind of when I started getting into like hiking and mountaineering and stuff like that too. And there was one mountain, it looks like the most badass around. And it was the one I wanted to climb the most while I was there, but I never ended up doing it. I kind of time. So I'm going to go back, climb that mountain, and then stay at the hotel and just like ball out.
And just blow it and just call it like tip to the hat. I did it.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, this will soon come. Will soon come. I've been seeing you kind of from the sidelines in the work that you put in, because I think a lot of people misunderstand that sales is very much a craft and very much a sport. You know, I kind of compare a lot of things business-wise to bodybuilding, and I think sales is something overlooked where there are a lot of reps go into like building that muscle. It's not just about, you know, taking a course or going through a script, but going through it. But before we get to that, because I know a lot of people listening and watching probably would love to get some tips on sales, but I want to take it back, because I think you have a really interesting story, purely because a lot of people, I think, aspire to, you know, make 10K per month, right? That's like the golden number. Like 10K per month seems to be like the easy number, or at least the goal number everyone wants to hit. And one of the best business vehicles, I think both of us would agree, is either a consulting agency, some form of service-based business, right? It's the easiest one with less risk, less leverage, and highest, you know, kind of speed to get there. But you kind of did both. So what interests me about you is you were making, I believe, just past 10K or around 10K with your agency. And you actually got a degree from what I can see as well. I don't know if did you finish it? Right? I think you did.
I did. Yeah.
You did. So you got a degree, you built an agency to 10K, and then you pretty much closed your agency or sold it off or got rid of it. And then you kind of went to work a part of someone else's thing. And that's like a complete 360 turn. And a lot of people like drop school, drop university, go all in the agency, make 10K, and then, you know, try to travel around the world and never work again. You kind of did a lot of that in reverse. So I'd love to know, like, first of all, why, and, you know, the whole story.
Sure. Yeah. So it's funny you say that. Yeah. So a year and a half ago, kind of like January 2021, was kind of when I started my agency. And I was at a bit of like pretty much rock bottom, you could say. Like COVID hit, things were like locked down. Well, not quite in January, I don't think, but anyways, that season, everything was locked down. I was in my parents' basement after I finished university. So I had this degree that meant nothing and didn't like, I knew I didn't want to use it, but I just didn't know at the time while I was going through it, like what it was that I actually wanted to do. And I'd been like watching YouTube videos for years, reading lots of books and taking a few like agency courses here and there as well. And then I was just kind of like at home, parents' basement, just went through a breakup as well. So it was like literally rock bottom. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And anyways, my dad's a mortgage broker. So I was like, okay, well, I've learned a lot of skills over the last couple of years, like Facebook ads, Google ads, copywriting, marketing, sales, stuff like that. It's like, why don't I see if I can apply that to my dad, help him get more deals? And so I kind of used him as a guinea pig. And I'm extremely fortunate that I had that opportunity to essentially spend his money to try and figure it out, because I really had no idea what I was doing. But anyways, got to the point where I started, like, after a couple months, I found a system that worked. Like, I built a system that was actually kind of working. He was making money and actually profiting. So I was like, okay, if I can do it for him, like maybe I just got lucky. Why don't I see if I can do this for somebody else, like another mortgage broker? So then I took a few courses at the time, like beforehand. So I kind of knew like how to market, how to sell, stuff like that to a very basic degree, but I'd never really actually applied it. I was just kind of stuck in that procrastination like cycle for a long time. And then I said, okay, I'm just going to go out there, get a client. And then after 30 sales calls, 30 no's, I dropped my prices to $200 a month because my software expenses were $200 a month for like Go High Level, Calendly, whatever. And I was like, okay, someone's got to say yes to this. And sure enough, there was a mortgage broker. We started working together literally the first day she got her mortgage license. So she was like as new to the game as I was, pretty much. And I kind of rolled out the system for her, and she started getting like a ton of leads. She started like talking to had booked appointments every single day, and things were actually going really well. And then that kind of gave me a lot more confidence as well. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't get lucky the first time. Maybe I do have something here. And then I just kind of like, I kept her on that $200 a month. We had like a 15% commission split on the tail end. So I'd like actually get some cash as she started closing deals, which was good. But anyways, that kind of evolved into like the agency. Because like I know a lot of people just starting out, like the biggest thing, like as someone who like coaches a lot of people, a lot of beginners as well, kind of like starting the business, like the one of the main things that holds a lot of people back and held me back for a long time was that imposter syndrome, right? And I think that like, competence leads to confidence. So if you can actually like get good at the thing that you're trying to do and you get some sort of like proof of concept, then that will help you build that confidence. This is exactly what happened with me as well. So it's like as I got results for my dad, as I got results for this other client, then I was like, okay, you know what, I can do this. And I started upping my prices. And then I signed a client at like 500 a month, and then I signed one at 1,000 and 1,500, and like so on and from there, right? So I think a lot of people think like they have to kind of charge $3,000 a month straight out the gate without ever having doing the thing. And then like on the sales call, that lack of conviction, they're going to see right through it, right? Like
and just one thing on that, because I speak to like tons and tons of agency owners every day as well. And one thing I always see is, and I'm curious to see your perspective, both from like working with these agency owners, but also like from your own experience. Do you think it helped that you had some experience, at least in the real estate or mortgage broker niche, because you had obviously grown up seeing your father? I'm sure you had friends in the space, like you must have been exposed to that. Because I often see like anyone who starts an agency from course or something, they all want to do Facebook ads and they all want to do it for e-com brands. And usually they've never run or like had any experience with e-com brands before. And there's so much that goes into learning it outside of just running ads, that I just think that accelerates that imposter syndrome so much. And I always tell people, like, choose a niche that like the fundamentals make sense, right? So that you can actually make money, but choose something that you at least know something about. Don't just jump into something. I mean, like, do you think it helped that you had some affinity to that space? It wasn't like completely, strange to you?
Absolutely. 100%. Because I would come across something and I could just like talk to my dad, like go upstairs, talk to my dad. Hey, like someone said this to me on a sales call. What do they mean by that? And then he could just kind of help me out. And I think that kind of like maybe a little, it might be unrelated, but honestly, probably not. I think that kind of ties into like the importance of having like some sort of mentor, somebody who's kind of like ahead of you with a lot more experience, going to show you the ropes. So like at the time, I didn't really have a mentor regarding like helping me start and grow an agency, but my dad kind of served as that in like that mortgage space. And I was listening to a podcast this morning at the gym actually. And he pretty much was saying, he's like, I'm a better investor because I'm a businessman, but I'm also a better businessman because I'm an investor. And I think that kind of like blends extremely well with what you kind of just mentioned there about like having some sort of affinity in what you're doing. And like, if you, like, for example, if you have your own e-com brand and then you start an e-com agency helping other brands to scale, and you've already done the thing, and you go against somebody who's like never completely new, never done it, like you're going to blow them out of the water, right? The competition, like there's not going to be any competition. And like, that was, I know for me, like looking back on certain sales calls, they'd be like, okay, like some kid in his parents' basement. Obviously, they didn't really know that. But they're like, a bunch of people ask me, like, why are you even doing this? How'd you get into this in the first place? And then I just kind of told them, like, oh, my dad's a mortgage broker. And instantly that gave me so much more credibility and authority, because they're like,
absolutely.
He's not just some random guy that doesn't know anything about this. He's actually got some sort of background in what we're trying to do here.
I think it's also about like storytelling, because I think like, if someone asks you, why do you care? And you have like no story, your story is just, oh, I saw it like in a course. That also is really difficult. Because I mean, like my story is that I used to build my own e-com brands. So I came from e-com. I learned how to run ads for myself with my own money before, going for clients. And like I could use my own brands as case studies, because that's the biggest thing, is like imposter syndrome, but also like lack of case studies or anything to show really. Plus, if you have no knowledge in what you're talking about, that's like even more difficult. If you're not one to talk to ask questions, that's like, way harder, especially if it's in a competitive niche. But so tell me, obviously you took those 30 calls and then you landed this client. And then after that, I think, you started landing clients a lot more quickly. What was the difference between the Jeremy who failed 30 calls in a row versus the one who then started to consistently sign clients for agency? Like, what changed? Right then, quick one, guys. If you are enjoying this episode, please go ahead and subscribe here on YouTube, or subscribe if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, pretty much anywhere. It really does just help get these episodes to more people so that we can help more founders who are in the trenches. And it also means that you'll get the notification whenever new episodes come out, so you can be one of the first to listen and watch them. And I'm literally looking at the guest lineup right now, and we have some incredible guests lined up. So trust me, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And with that said, let's get back to the episode.
I think there's a lot that changed, but there's also a lot that like kind of carried over, and like the 1.0 Jeremy led into like some of the traits that I had kind of led into evolving into that 2.0. So what I mean by that is like, I always knew deep down, like no matter what happens, however long it takes, I'm going to figure this out. Whether I sign a client on my first call or my 100th call, I don't care, because I'm going to succeed. And like, didn't really care how long it took. Now, maybe because I was living in my parents' house and they didn't really have any expenses, maybe that kind of like led to that a little bit. We have much like pressure or urgency, so to say. But then like creeping like desire for like independence was really kind of what drove me as well. It's like I wanted that independence. I wanted to have a nice apartment like this and kind of like break free of that that kind of like not relationship, but like the dynamic of just like being like just a kid in your parents' basement, so I think that really just kind of like helped expand my vision and kind of think a little bit more long term. It's like when you're in the trenches getting told no like day after day, every single day, it can be a little disheartening for sure. But then of course, like if you're like, well, every no that I get is like just one step closer to a yes, then coming at it from that angle kind of gives you that abundance mindset, so to say. And I think like definitely competence and like learning a lot more every single day. Like I was reading a book a week, just like cranking those out, whether it was to do with like mindset or sales, marketing, copywriting, funnel building, whatever, and taking courses and stuff like that. So it was like 1.0 Jeremy had a very elementary understanding. And I was like, okay, who do I need to become to be a successful agency owner, working with a ton of clients all over the country and like having a team and stuff like that? It's like, well, I need to level up these skills. And this kind of takes me to this concept I heard on a Alex Hormozi podcast last week, and kind of talking about how to break through to the next level. And essentially he's like, it really boils down to three things. It's like your beliefs that you have, your skills, and your character traits. So in order, like probably what's stopping you from leveling up to that next level is like 1, 2, or all three of those things. So for me at the time, like my beliefs was like, when I first started out, was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm kind of scared. This is uncomfortable. And like, I might fail and stuff like that. But I also had the beliefs that like, I knew I was going to succeed no matter what happened. And then my skills were like very low. Because like,
everyone starts some way.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I had a lot of knowledge, like kind of built up just like in theory from like studying and like reading books and courses and stuff like that. But I never really applied it before. So in terms of like how applicable those skills are, if you haven't actually like done the thing that you're trying to do before, then like I'd say they were pretty low. So okay, I just need to continue building up that foundation of skills to continue to grow. And then also like character traits, like it was an incredible like period of growth. And I did a lot of like reflection and kind of like looking inside a lot. And I just kind of just did like an audit one day. I don't know if I was like reading a book at the time where this like told me to do this. I can't really remember, but essentially I was like, okay, what do I want? who do I need to become in order to achieve that? And what's preventing me from becoming that person right now? So I was like, well, addicted to a whole bunch of things. So it was like watching bad videos online. It was like addicted to my phone, like scrolling Instagram for hours, just unproductively, watching movies, watching TV, and just kind of wasting time and like sleeping in, not being very regimented. I was drinking and partying with some friends and stuff like that too. So I was like, okay, what's more important, all of that stuff or what I actually want to achieve in life? Independence, freedom, and achieving my goals and actually building something I can be proud of and working on that. And I was like, well, the answer is pretty clear. So
yeah,
period of 6 months, I just literally cut out all that stuff like cold turkey. And I just went like very strict. I deactivated my Instagram account. I deleted like all the apps from my phone. I'd lock it up, wouldn't touch it till at least like 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So I got all the stuff. I started doing 75 hard as well. So I was just like super regimented. I was reading a book a week and I just kind of like did this entire 180 essentially and kind of flipped everything on its head and started acting as the person that would achieve my goals with ease. And that's kind of what really cracked the code.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation yesterday with someone else who also runs a different business, but does really well. And we were talking, and there were a couple of things that came from that. First, people don't seem to understand that inner work seems to precede like the outer work. And people think that inner work is not working, like working on mindset and these things is not working. Sending looms or doing outreach is working. And really, they're very much the same. It's just, working on different parts of you as a human, which ultimately is your business. That was the first thing that came up. The second thing that I thought was quite interesting as well from that conversation was, and it's kind of very much of a myriad to what you're saying here, which is a lot of people seem to completely underestimate that entrepreneurs or some of the successful ones, definitely some of the most self-aware people you'll ever met, because they have to go through much to learn about themselves before they can actually create anything. And a lot of people have like no self-awareness, never mind any business awareness. And the third thing was like, it's literally so easy to do well with a business these days, pretty much because everyone's handicapping themselves. Like one of the superpowers of being a 20 to 30-year-old is just don't spend more than an hour on your phone a day. Like if you just can get your screen time down, you pretty much are like one out of 99 others. And you've made it a lot easier for yourself because everyone's always consuming versus producing. And if you can flip that and kind of break through that, honestly, what we do is not that hard. Like if you really break it down into its blocks, it's just, putting in the reps. So interesting. So how did the agency grow from there? Let's continue the story.
Sure. So after months and months of sending cold emails, cold looms, all that stuff, getting told no, getting shut down, I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like clearly what I'm doing isn't quite working very well. And I was seeing other people succeed. So I was like, okay, there's something that I'm missing. And anyways, I was following Trey Cockram on YouTube for a while, like over a year. At that point, I saw his clients succeeding, seeing results and stuff like that. And I was like, he seems like a pretty solid guy and he knows his stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, clearly there's a missing link here. So I can either continue to struggle and suffer, to try and figure it out on my own for the next couple of years, or I can just invest money that I wasn't really making at the time. So I was reinvesting like every single dollar right back into the business, where it was like hiring like a consultant for like, hey, how can I improve my landing page? How can I improve my ads? Like whatever. I was really just trying to crack that code and build that system. But anyway.
Do you think you would have done that if you were living by yourself? Because like I've spoken to a lot of people, and the ones that at least like the top 1%, at least in our space, I know that like, because I've heard their stories and spoken to them. When they started, they maybe got to like 10K very quickly, but people don't underestimate like how quickly they were burning that money by investing in mentors and private one-to-ones and coaches like at the highest level. Like I know some pretty successful people that, they were doing like 30, 40, 50K a month, but like making no money because they were investing all of it. And I always tell people that in the beginning, but a certain part of me is also thinking, that's also because a lot of people doing that, they were living at home like you. So like they didn't need the money. So what
Mm.
do you say to the person who, okay, they're making 5, 10K per month, but they also have rent and they also have other things to pay for? Do you think you would have done something different had that been your situation? Or like,
That's a good
what would you
question.
say? Yeah.
And that was kind of going back to the topic of like evolving from that 1.0 to that 2.0 version of Jeremy. It was like in the past, I've had the tendency to kind of like hoard my money and like just like stockpile and just like be very kind of, I don't know what the word is, just like kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say cheap,
Yes.
but kind of like letting go of that mentality and just be like, okay, I've got a bunch of cash in my bank, but it's literally sitting there doing absolutely nothing. And I like, why would I not invest it to help me like move forward? So that was kind of like a level up in my belief in character trait, to kind of like get to that next stage. I'd say like that's kind of like where it started. And then like when I did move out on my own, it's like, well, it's kind of funny. When I made that transition, my income also like skyrocketed because I was like, okay, now I've got a lot of more urgency. I got bills to pay. So I was like, okay, how can I continue to grow and grow and grow? So I think like definitely the environment had a thing to play, like a part to play there. But I think like most importantly is like that mentality of like letting go of that kind of like hoarding mentality. And like one of my coaches right now, he told me something that was like pretty insightful. He's like money, like why do they call it currency? Because it's supposed to be like a current. It comes in and then it
Yes.
go, right? Rather like if you think about it like water, right? Like a current, it has to continue to flow in and out. And that's how you like grow and grow. But if you just have like a stagnant like pond, then it'll get like algae and it'll start turning green and stuff like that. And it'll just kind of like kill everything. So I was like, okay, well, that's a really interesting point. And every time I like get some money coming in now, then I'm like, okay, how can I get rid of this? Essentially, how can I not let this stack up in my like checking account? So it's just like I have kind of like a system for how I manage my finances now to ensure that like I continue to invest and reinvest and stuff like that to level up, and then also B, it's I don't just like have a bunch of cash just sitting there because I know that's when I start getting complacent. So
Yes.
so lately, like yeah, I've got some bills to pay and rent and stuff like that, and I've kind of been playing that fine line of like, okay, how little can I keep in my account to make sure I cover all of that, but then also like continue to grow. So I know kind of been like dancing around the direct question, but I'd say like with that background and with that context, um, I think it probably would have like if I was on my own, it probably would have like probably would have like sped that up to be honest, because I would have had that fire under my ass. I would have had that urgency. Be like, okay, like what I'm doing isn't working. How can I like how can I figure this out? I got rent to pay this month,
Yeah.
also next month, the month after that. If I'm not making any money, then like I won't be able to pay next month either. So it's like, how can I like where can I spend this money to invest it to help me make even more? And then like from there, then I would be able to like continue to just kind of grow and grow and grow. And I really do believe that like maybe I don't know if I would have had this belief back then, maybe, but now I sure do. It's like no matter what happens, like I have like 100% confidence and belief in myself that like I'll figure it out. So it's like even if I like
Yeah.
lost all like today and I had rent to pay in 2 weeks, it'd be like I'll figure it out. Like I'll come up with it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's hope that kind of makes sense.
It does. Um, it's interesting though, because I think there's a certain amount of experiences you have to have before you get that belief. I think it's very hard to get that, even if someone tells it to you, unless you experience it, which is, kind of like a bit of a catch-22. Because I know like I completely can, resonate with what you said, where having a lot of cash in the bank is really, really dangerous. And I think a lot of people don't notice that until you're in the position where you're sitting on, 6, 7 figures in cash. And it's like, well, do I feel like working this week? I don't know, because I got like 10 years of rent, in cash. So like, and it becomes a different problem when you get there. And I also think that moving out and getting that fire under your ass is the best thing beginners could do. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that, but like the people who I've seen succeed, not just with agencies, but consulting, any business model, is the people that literally have to make money. Because I see a lot of people who like they're in university and their parents are paying for everything, or they're living at home and they've got like no real expenses or no reason to make money other than just they feel like they want to. So I don't know if you agree with that or if you've also seen that.
100%. And
Yeah.
I think this kind of ties into like sales as well, because like if you approach, like, let's say we're on a sales call, if you approach it from like, I'm trying to sell you my program, then like there's going to be a lot of resistance and friction. But if you approach it with like, I'm here to see, like, to try and help this person make that decision to grow into that 2.0 version of themselves and kind of draw a line in the sand today to take that next step that they've been putting off for a long time, then like it's going to go from like butting heads to like, I'm in your corner. I want to see you succeed. I want to help you. And I know that this is what you need to do in order to get there. So that like the conversation doesn't become like tied towards like the program or like the service or whatever. It becomes like, okay, are you ready to take that next step to becoming that person that you want to be and achieving your goals? And I think like 100%, if you are like, I know I was stuck in this for a long time. So I was like, after I finished school, I was living at my parents' place for, I think, probably a couple of years, a year or two, something like that. And it was just like, I had no reason to make money. I had no reason to do anything. So like for a long time, I didn't. And then finally, once I kind of made that decision and drew the line in the sand, it's like, okay, by this date, I'm signing a lease. I'm getting my own place, even though I don't really know if I'll be able to like afford it.
Yeah.
I don't care, because I know I needed that deadline. I needed that urgency. And for me, it was like that decision. Be like, okay, I've had enough of like my current like circumstances, and I'm ready to draw a line in the sand, make that decision, make that commitment now, and kind of put a bit of a deadline on it. And then once I did that, then like my income just like doubled each month for like the months leading up to that. So okay, I've got that fire under my ass now, and I got to actually get going. So yeah, I think absolutely, if you can kind of back yourself into a corner, then like the only way out is forward.
And I think there's no greater corner than getting on a plane. I was speaking to someone who's been like really trying to get something off the ground, and he really has the skill set. Like he has the skills. He just can't get himself to do the things that he literally knows he has to do. And I told him the best thing you could do is get on a plane and head to a country where like you need a decent amount of income to like survive, where you know no one. And you'll arrive, then you'll have no distractions because you don't know anyone, and you'll be paying rent in the country that you don't know, and it will be expensive. And if you're surrounded by that as well, and he did it, and he's seeing some amazing results out of it. So I think that's a life hack. If you can afford it, it's like move, even if you don't have a lot of money, like move to Bali or Cape Town or somewhere that's cost effective, and just get away from it. But so you spoke about sales. So in this journey from kind of zero to, let's call it like 10K per month, because I know you hit that with your agency. Agencies are beautiful as a starting business model because you learn so many things: operations, hiring, firing, team, clients, everything. Did you notice early on that you like had an affinity or a love for the sales part, or did you just kind of get attracted towards it because that's where usually the money is made? Or did you just love it? Because some people do things that they don't like generally love. They just do it because that's where the income is. I'm curious to see if you saw that coming before you kind of transitioned.
Honestly, no, not at all. And okay. I'll fill in the blanks here and kind of finish that story, because I know I've been kind of dragging it out. So scaled the agency, worked with a ton of clients, hired a team, stuff like that. And then I got to the point where I was getting really burnt out. And I was like, honestly, like, I don't really enjoy this much anymore. And I'd like wake up and like have to do like an hour of work on, I don't know, building a landing page or onboarding a new client or something like that. And there was a lot of friction. It felt like I was kind of like swimming upstream. And it got to the point where I'd like sign a client and then I'd be like, like now I got to deliver. Now I got to actually like do the work. And like, I kind of like didn't want to sign any more clients. And I was like, and then I kind of just like caught myself. I was like, okay, this approach, this perspective, this is not serving me. It's not serving my clients. It's not serving my team. And then I just kind of asked myself, I'm like, do I see myself doing this for the next like 3 years or like 3 years from now? I'm like, to be honest, I don't really see myself doing this like 3 months from now. It was kind of like one of those things where it's just like my intention for starting it was like, let's just try and make some money.
Yeah.
And I really like actually like enjoyed it. It's like I didn't really like relate to, I don't know, 50-year-old mortgage brokers. And like it just kind of like got to the point where I was just kind of like getting burnt out. I was like, okay, if I stop this thing, it would be stupid because I have no idea what I would do next. And then long story short, because I had done like a scaled the agency, I'd done pretty well. That was when Trey actually asked me if I wanted to join his team as a coach to help others kind of like start from scratch and grow. So then I was doing both at the same time. And I remember like taking my first few coaching calls. And like, I think my first onboarding call, they're supposed to be like 30, 60 minutes. I went for like 2.5 hours with this guy because like I was just really enjoying it. And anyways, I was like, wow, I really like the coaching side of things. This is a ton of fun. And I like get to help people that I kind of like used to be. And that's another point there too, like kind of with you and the agency having a background in e-com, and now you help people start agencies as well. It's like, I forget where I heard it, but it was like, we're best equipped to serve the person that we used to be. And if anybody's trying to figure out like, oh, what niche should I be in, or what should I do, or something like that, it's like, well, figure out like where you were at, what you have experience in, and then just like help people kind of do that. But anyways, kind of getting back on track, I was doing both. And then I was really enjoying the coaching side, really not enjoying the agency side. And then Trey asked if I wanted to start taking sales calls for him too. I think he put out like a call to action or like a job opening for a sales role. And he had like 100 people apply. They did all these interviews and everything. And I was just like coaching the time. I didn't even apply because like, I don't know anything about sales. And like, yeah, I had the agency, I made a bunch of sales and stuff like that. But like, I was like, I didn't see myself as like a sales guy or a closer or anything like that. So they spent like a month or I don't know how long they like him and somebody else on the team spent like interviewing these people or whatever. And then Trey, out of the blue one day, he's like, dude, do you want to start taking sales calls? And I was like, sure.
Why not?
And that was it. I got the job that I didn't even apply for. So I started taking sales calls, and then he was very, very pivotal in helping me like actually become good at sales, like coaching me and stuff like that. But even then, like I was 0 for 30 with my agency in the first 30 calls. And then I was 0 for 17 on my first like 17 calls with Trey. And I was like, shit, like, did I make the right decision? Is this actually right? But then I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. So then I just got back in the trenches big time. And every single day I'd listen to like 2 to 4 call recordings of like successful closes. I'd go through like old sales training. Like I think the first course I ever bought was like Sam Ovens Consulting Accelerator. I'd go through the same video, like it was like 2.5 hours long, like every single day, just like going over like the sales script, just like cementing that into my brain. And then like after I'd take some calls that day, they didn't close. And I was like, okay, why didn't they close? And then I would go back, re-listen to calls, break them down. Like Trey send me a couple of his like successful call recordings, and I would literally go through them. I was doing 75 to hard at the time as well. I did that for over half the year last year. So very familiar with that. But so like on my, like one of my workouts, I go outside, go for like a run or a walk or something like that. And I'd be listening to these call recordings, and I would like be on my phone in my notes, typing every single question that would be asked, and then the responses as well. So I could like track the conversation, like logically break it down. Okay, what questions got really good answers? How did he ask this specific question? Right? Why did he ask this question? Why was he getting, like, what was his angle? Why was he trying to do this? What was the answer that he was trying to get? How did he present the offer? What really clicked with them? What didn't? What kind of turned the prospect off? So like for months, I did this every single day, just breaking it down and going over the same thing every single day. And it's like that Bruce Lee quote. It's like, I don't fear the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, or maybe it's 10,000 or whatever. And it was like, if I can just, like, obviously I knew Sam Owens knew what he was doing. Trey knew what he was doing as well. They kind of had like a similar approach to sales. So it was like, clearly this thing works. I just need to practice this kick 1,000 times, get really damn good at this. And then once I have that foundation set, then I can kind of branch off, do some other sales training, maybe read some books and stuff like that to kind of just like fill in any missing pieces. So what I lacked in natural talent, I made up for with like a lot of really hard work for a long time. And just like kind of what you're saying before with like how sales relates to the gym. It's like, how do you build a muscle? How do you get a muscle to be stronger? More reps.
Yourself in a lot of pain as well. The more pain, the better.
Exactly. Just more time under the bar, right? Spend more time under the bar and your muscles will grow. And it's the same thing with sales. If you want to get better at sales, well, do hours of sales training every single day if you suck. And do that for 6 months and you will be making sales.
Got it. I think you have a really like interesting approach, or at least insight to a lot of these things, because you kind of done things not backwards, but just very different than the proven path, right? Like most people don't make that jump. Like it sounds like at the time you didn't have exposure to like Cole Gordon or like any of Van Lock, like any of these, high ticket closer coaches, whatever. You kind of did the hard work of kind of reverse engineering the process yourself before someone was like, well, here's the process. And then it sounds like you had most of the dots connected before someone else, filled the gaps, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that I wanted to ask, is a couple of things I wanted to ask with that. The first is, we live in a society, honestly, because I think Instagram has become like a dating site now, but everyone wants to put, entrepreneur in their bio. And obviously you're just gone from being an entrepreneur to, well, now being a coach for someone else's program. And so obviously you were struggling with the sales at the time, but at any point, like what was going through your mind as far as, I've worked so hard to build my own thing and now I'm kind of joining someone else's thing, like, was that something you struggled with or did it just flow very naturally? I get that you enjoyed the work more and you saw some potential, but obviously it's quite a big change because a lot of people, I think would choose to like be making 2K a month, but it's their thing versus a lot more, but they're an employee or at least part of someone else's. So I wonder, like, how did you go through that mental process?
That's a great question because it was an extremely difficult mental process.
Yes.
Because like the reason I started a business in the first place was like so I could have that independence, that freedom and stuff like that entrepreneurs strive for, and like to build something cool and stuff like that. The way I saw it was like kind of like the first part of that was like I was really just kind of like beginning to like resent that vehicle or that like business that I had built. And then I saw this opportunity and like I kind of like really humbled myself as well. I was like, I don't really know, like in the grand scheme of things, I'm like a very small fish. I don't know, like my skill set isn't great. I like not making a ton of money. Well, maybe it's a little relative because like to anybody else, it's like really good money, but then to people we surround ourselves with and like talking to people that are making like 100, 200K a month, I'm like, oh man, I'm broke,
Literally.
And that's another topic maybe. Kind of stay on track. It was like, I saw this opportunity to get really close to somebody who was absolutely crushing the game, who I really respected. And if I could just kind of like attach to their, like get as close as I can to him, then I could level up and like really improve my skills, the way I see the world, my beliefs, character traits and everything like that. And really just kind of like submit myself to an apprenticeship. And that's kind of like the way I viewed it. I was like, okay, yes, my ego took a huge hit, shutting down the agency, making that transition to then go work for somebody else. But I was like, at the same time, it's like, I know that this is gonna, it's like that next stepping stone in like my journey. It's like, built the agency, kind of had it systemized, stuff like that. I was like, kind of just felt like I've been there, done that. And I was like ready for that next thing. I was ready to move on. So I was like, okay, well, what would this help me or hinder me regarding like my like grand vision and everything like that? Well, I really liked like the coaching and consulting side of things. And I saw myself like doing that down the road. And I enjoyed that a lot more than the work of like the agency and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, that's great. The sales side of things, if you know how to sell, like you literally never have to worry about money again. And I didn't really know how to sell very well at the time either. So I was like, okay, I see this as like a stepping stone to get me closer to my ultimate end goal. And that's kind of like, that was a bit of my decision-making process there. It was just like, kind of been there, done that, was looking for that next challenge. I knew that that was going to help me like really, really hone in on those skills of sales and coaching. And just like, as a coach, like I saw, like I've worked with hundreds of clients at this point in all different aspects of online businesses. So I know what works, I know what doesn't, what makes people succeed, what makes people fail, what holds people back and stuff like that too. So I was like, I can learn such a depth of knowledge and understanding of how all of this works, especially seeing how like Trey runs his company. And like right now it's like pretty much been like almost running the like his main program with a couple of other guys, and like everyone on the team's incredible. Like I love these guys. But anyways, it's like that's kind of like the way I saw it. It's like, okay, this is going to be an incredible opportunity to really level up my skills and my standards, my beliefs, and just kind of having like a little bit more external accountability to really just like give me that structure to just like focus on these couple things right now, practice those kicks 1,000 times, get really good at it. And then from there, like I can kind of figure out what that next stepping stone is. And like, I have no doubt that at some point, like probably, I don't know how far out, I'll definitely be back in the trenches building something. And in the meantime, I have been like doing a lot of stuff as well. You just finished building out a new CRM and like run all the ads for us and stuff like that too. So there's been a lot of like good projects that are like pushing me and challenging me and like helping me grow along the way. But I have no doubt like that. And that's kind of like the stuff that I really enjoy doing, like actually being in the trenches, building and like building something really cool that serves a lot of people, helps them out big time. So it was definitely a tough call, but I knew like if I could take that short-term hit to my ego, in the long term, it'll benefit me so much more and help me like succeed in the grand scheme of things. So I just kind of like expanded my like time horizon in which I like viewed that decision, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that's a perspective more people need to hear, because I also reflected on this. So I've never had a job before, at least not like a proper job. I've always like run my own thing. And I've often thought about like, there's been a lot of things that I've had to learn through trial and error that if I had had a job, I might have observed, just like how someone runs a team, or how someone lays out projects. Like these are things you would just learn if you worked, right? Versus if you haven't done anything, you got to figure it out. And you can kind of make up for that, like you said, by investing in mentors and coaching and things. But if you have no money and you have no experience to do any, or no connections or anything to do any of that, then the best thing is just go work for someone who knows what he's doing. And then, you can always step out, because I also think a lot of people don't realize most of these successful companies that people see around, they're usually started by people in their late 30s or 40s even. There's like they're like 1 out of a million cases, like a Facebook, where it's like someone, really, really young, but most of them are not. And that's because they've been in the trenches themselves, then just like figure everything out themselves. But you brought up something that piqued my interest, because it's something that I certainly struggle with. And I want to kind of go down that route and then we'll come back to the story. But feeling broke when you're actually making what most people would think is a lot of money. And that's something that like I resonate with heavily, because when you're around people that are doing 100, 200, 300K a month, it very quickly starts to feel like you're very broke. And I think I'm in a unique perspective because, so my girlfriend, obviously she's South African, and with the currency and things, when I convert back, I often do in like a day what, she would do in like a year, which is a very unique experience. But then I'd speak to some of the people that, both of us know, and then there's a very different level to it. And it's like, you're making 40, 50, 60K a month, but you feel very broke. And I wonder, first of all, how you deal with this, but also like, do you see a lot of people go through those struggles? Because I know you speak to a lot of, online businesses in general.
Totally. Yeah. And there's this concept called like the mimetic desire. Essentially, it's like essentially like a mime, like you want to like imitate kind of what you see. And I think that's like part of human nature. So it's like there's that quote that's used a million times, like you become the 5 people, whatever, right? Everybody knows that, but like it's so true, because like when I like thinking back like 3-4 years ago, before I actually like I've been like talking about starting an online business and like wanting to do something, but I never ended up doing anything. And that was because of like the people that I was hanging out with were just like partying like 3 nights a week and just like working like a job that they didn't really care about and just kind of like escaping, stuck in that cycle. So naturally I was too. But then when I kind of like started exposing myself to people who were running successful businesses who were making like 10K a month, 20K a month, 100K a month, a couple 100K a month, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, now before I was comparing myself to like the people that were in my circle before, and like they were just fine and content being just kind of drifting almost. Therefore, I kind of was. But now I kind of like shifted that circle, and now I'm comparing, like whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we compare ourselves to the people that we see. And so now it's like I look at like a couple like guys doing a couple $100,000 a month. I'm like, man, I am broke.
Yeah.
I'm doing absolutely nothing. But then I like when you like kind of take a step back from this and like kind of look around, it's like, oh, okay. Like I guess I am doing okay relatively to like everybody else like around my local area, and stuff like that. But like for example, we end up kind of wanting the things that like our social circle wants. And what I mean by that is like I never used to want a Rolex, but now I do, because that's like the thing that everybody in the circle strives for.
Got that. Yeah.
Yeah. I never really used to want like 100K a month because I didn't think it was possible. But now I see people doing that every single day. And like I talk to them, I'm really good friends with them. And I'm like, okay, well, now I want that. Right. So I think it's important like to surround yourself with people that are further ahead of you, whether you have to pay for that, whether you work for them, whether you do both like I did. It's like whatever it takes to try and do that. And then that will naturally kind of like help you raise your standards as well. But you also got to be careful with that too, because then it's easy to kind of get caught up in that. And like I find myself asking myself all the time to kind of like keep me kind of like humble or sober, I guess, is like, do I want this because I actually want it? It's going to bring me fulfillment, or do I want this because I think that it's going to make me look good in front of like the other people around? And I think that's something that I've been really like trying to get a grasp of, because I know I'm very like ego driven, and like doing like I remember like last year, for example, when I deactivated my Instagram account for 6 months. Before, I was like doing things, like I literally go do things with like the intention of like, oh, this is going to make a really good like Instagram story, or this is going to look sick online, right? And then when I deactivated that and I removed that, then it was just like I was able to just do things that I actually wanted to do and things that were important to me. So I think there's a fine balance there that is going to be different for everybody. but it's like, it's important to like really understand yourself and figure out what is actually important to you, and also like leveraging your ego to chase those things, because that's also going to help you level up. And if you can like leverage it to your advantage without letting it control you, then like I think that can really accelerate your growth.
Absolutely. I think it's a very fine line to walk, because I've been around people who also, for them, 100K a month or whatever, it's like nothing. And it definitely comes across that way in the words that they express. You see those captions and things which seem almost arrogant, until you start to realize it's not them being arrogant. It's just what they've become accustomed to, which a lot of people looking at on the outside, they don't kind of see that perspective because they're not there. And I think it's a very fine line, like you said, between letting it inspire you, but not letting it consume you and then kind of take you down a very dark road. A question then. So you said, that typical quote everyone has, surround yourself and you'll be the sum of the top 5 people you're around. I found that when I'm in a major city, so whether that be London, LA, or anything like that, there's a very different energy than when you're in the middle of nowhere. And I heard someone say something the other day that every city kind of whispers something to you. When you're in LA, it whispers, get more famous. When you're in New York, it's kind of, you should be making more money. Each city has like a whisper that comes with it. And so the common thing that would come out of that as well, surround yourself with wealth and it will become a normality to you. And therefore you'd strive to do it, so move to Dubai or LA or New York or London. But again, you and actually Trey, because I know his story, have done things differently. You guys are certainly not in Dubai, where there's extreme amounts of wealth around you. So do you think that is a really good factor? Like, do you think you can kind of trick yourself into that by moving to a place of wealth? Or do you think that needs to come from more the social circle you create? But then it's also a question of, how do you create a social circle? I mean, you said pay for it, obviously. But like, if you're just getting started out, like, what would you say to all of that?
I know for me, every single time I like wake up in the morning or I come home, I open my door and I look out at the view that I have right now. If I were to like show you it, you've probably seen it on my Instagram stories and stuff like that. But like,
Yeah.
it's just incredible. Like, I live in one of the nicest buildings in my city, and it's just like, it puts me in a state of like gratitude every single day, gratitude and abundance. So I think like 100% I agree with you that like your environment does have a huge part to play. So it's like kind of like the physical, like kind of physically where you are, but then also like the relational side of things, like who you surround yourself with as well. And like the energy from both definitely molds where you're at. Cause I know like when I was in my parents' basement, like I thought 10K a month was a pipe dream. I thought that was like so far out of reach, but that's because like I was in an environment that like where 10K a month was extremely out of reach. And then now I look at this, it's like, I was talking to like my fitness coach a couple months back, and we were just like chilling here at my place, just like looking out. And no, we were up at his place. He's got the same apartment as me, just like a couple floors above me. And we were kind of talking about there's levels to this stuff. And he's like looking down at like the people, and like there's like townhouses like right down below us. And he's like, bro, like those people are probably always looking up here saying, oh, I wish I had a view like that. I wish I had an apartment like that. Meanwhile, Kyle and I, we're looking over there at like the hills with like the multi-million-dollar mansions. We're like, oh, like I just want one of those,
Yes.
So it's like where does it stop? But also it's good to have that environment where it like inspires you, puts you in that state of abundance, that state of gratitude. It's like, I know, like I walk in here and I look out at the view, I'm like, okay, like, let's get to work. It's like, this is awesome. I don't want to lose this. And I like, wherever I go next, I can't downgrade,
Yes.
like I gotta kind of just like keep that going. And I think it is really important to like, because like, I live in a pretty small city. I don't know if you call it a city. It's 150,000 people. It's like the biggest one around here, kind of where I grew up. And there's a good amount of like money here as well, relatively. But I know like when I go visit really nice places and stuff like that, it puts you in a different state of mind, and it really opens
Yeah.
your eyes to a lot, kind of seeing things a lot differently. And honestly, like I had this thought this morning while I was listening to a podcast, and like this entrepreneur is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, started huge companies, has a bunch of funds and stuff like that too. And even like that, like his environment is much different, or maybe not environment, but just his perspective. It's like when he starts something, his goal is to make like 100 million a year with this business. Whereas like for a lot of people in our space, it's like, oh, I just want to make 10K a month.
Yeah,
So
very different.
there's different levels, and I thought it was really interesting. Like when you come at it from that perspective as well, like he was like, for years, I reinvested like 80 to 90 cents on every dollar I made into building a really good product, into building like acquisition and stuff like that, into actually build the business. Imagine if people in our space did that. Imagine if people in our industry said, hey, I'm just shooting to take home 10% of everything that my company makes. I'm going to dump the rest back into an incredible client experience. I'm going to hire like a team to make sure like it's almost impossible not to get results as somebody goes through this. And to like, because I know a lot of people just kind of focus on like the
Marketing.
the Stripe screenshots,
Yeah.
Imagine if like, and when you focus on that and that's what you're going for, well, then you tend to make decisions that are kind of like optimized for that specific metric, just sales, acquisition, stuff like that. But then like I know a lot of people on sales calls, I hear a lot of the time, like people have gone through a ton of programs before, but they didn't really get results. And they're like, oh yeah, like on the front end, like this person seems incredible, but then like actually going through like the product, it's like I'm still in the same place and I'm stuck. It's like, imagine if people spend as much time and resources on the back end, actually delivering an incredible experience, pumping a ton of money into that than they did like on the front end. It's like in 3 to 5 years, there would be no competition. Right.
I think if everyone did that, the cost of running ads in our space would skyrocket. That I know for my. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I know a lot of people who are kind of the face for our industry, at least because they're really, really good at marketing, and some of their products are really good. But I definitely have seen that a lot, where 90% of the time, attention, and spend goes to marketing, and very little on the product side. And usually, when you have such a volume coming your way, the people who aren't happy kind of slip through the cracks, and so it doesn't really get noticed. So I definitely think there's merit in that. I am curious though. So now that because you said in the beginning, sales was not something that like attracted you. You just kind of fell into it kind of, and then you had to learn as you were going. Now that you've been doing sales for a while, and obviously you, as being part of Trey's team, you see a lot of things. I'm sure you work a bit on the product team and getting results. Obviously you do coaching, running ads. If you had to choose any sector in a business or any vertical to operate in, would you choose sales even though you are a closer, or do you have more passion for something else?
I think sales is incredible because you get to have such close proximity to your customer. So for example, like I think one of the reasons why I really enjoy that, but also coaching, is because I get to see both sides. People on the front end, what is actually important to them and what they need, what they care about, what they were lacking in other areas and other programs, stuff like that. But then also on the delivery side, like with coaching, actually like helping people get the result, well, then I can just like fill those gaps directly. So if I was just a coach, then I feel like I wouldn't really have too much exposure to like what people actually want. So then like your product could only be so good. So I think it is important to like have your toes in a couple different ponds, but obviously like what I think what a lot of people see, like what, I don't know, I still think I'm a very, very, very small fish in a big pond, but like the people that do know me, I think that like naturally, like the thing that they think about is like sales, right? So I think it is good to like specialize in something. And I know on the back end as well, like a lot of what I do with our clients is like sales coaching. So like we'd like watch over like one of their call recordings and like help them break it down, essentially, like tell them why they didn't close, how to improve. So I think it is really important to like have a specialty there. But I think also like, yeah, from the angle of like, where's the biggest opportunity, and like for the long term, like definitely acquisition is, if you can get really good at like marketing and sales and acquisition, that's what people buy, to be honest. It's like,
Yeah.
so therefore like you're never like, there's always going to be a demand for it. People want to continue to grow, people want to make more sales and like pump up those Stripe screenshots, right? So if that's what you sell, hey, pay me this much, I'll help you make way more than this. It's a very like easy sale on like the logistical side there, in terms of like logic. And then also like the demand's always going to be there too, because like nobody wants to just like, oh, I want to make 10K a month and then just like stay there forever, right? Once they get there, it's
The
goalposts
next
change.
level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think like thinking long term, it makes a ton of sense to get really good at sales, get really good at like marketing and lead gen as well, and then like you can leverage that to make like a ton of money. It's like that Warren Buffett quote. It's like, it's not about how hard you row, but like what boat you're in, right? It's like if I were to build an offer on like, I'll help your clients get better results, or something like that, then it's like, that's not going to be as attractive, like realistically, as like, I'll help you double your closing rate in the next 30 days, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I'll help you like book 5 calls a day automatically. And then it's like that's what people want, because that's kind of like, I don't know if it taps in their ego with like the sales and stuff like that, because that's seems to be kind of the metric that everybody shoots for, is like revenue, because that's what sells. But yeah, I think like when I look at it that way, and maybe I'm thinking about, maybe I might be overthinking it, and really like breaking it down, but at the same time, it does really like the challenge of sales, and like having to like show up, talk to someone completely new, and like actually help them make the decision that they know they need to make in order to improve and get there, actually achieve their goals and stop staying stuck. Like to me, that's really cool. So I do really enjoy the sales side of things. But I also find like marketing fascinating too, because if you can do most of the selling in your marketing, then the sales become a million times easier. Like for example, like when I get a lead that books in, they come straight from like YouTube, and in the form they're like, oh, I've been watching content for over a year and like excited to like work with you. It's like
It's a layup.
a full layup, you know. It's like all you do on the call is just like send them an invoice and get them onboarded.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people like kind of disassociate marketing and sales, but like to get really like to make your sales life easier, like if you can understand how to influence people's beliefs in your marketing to get them to view your solution as the missing link, then like it doesn't matter what price you charge, they're going to buy from you. It's like Russell Brunson's like big domino statement. It's something along the lines of like, if I can like get this audience to believe that like this new opportunity is the key to what they desire most and is only attainable through like my specific service or my specific vehicle or something like that, then like all objections become irrelevant and they like have no other option but to invest. So I think if you can do that and kind of shift their beliefs to like need your thing in your marketing, then like you're gonna get so many more inbound leads. You're gonna get so many more, like the leads that do come to you, they're gonna be warmed up and they're gonna be like hot and ready, pretty much ready to rock and roll. So I think it's like, I think like I find it fascinating, kind of like finding the balance between sales and marketing. So okay, how can we make the sales side much easier by like taking a really creative approach to the marketing angle? And I know I dumped a lot of stuff on you there.
No, keep going. You're on a roll.
Yeah.
No, but I think it comes back to like, I see a lot of people look at sales as this very, very kind of hard thing where like, it's kind of like a car salesman, right? Where you got to force him down this like one thing because that's like where you make all your commission. And I think people don't realize that at the end of the day, sales honestly is just about like, okay, what problems do you have? Do I have a solution that can solve it? And also being honest with yourself. Like it's very hard to sell something if you know inherently it's not going to fix the problems this person has. Because a lot of people, like the biggest shift that I ever had, at least in my career with sales, is when it suddenly clicked that I don't have to close every call. Like if I get on and this person, for whatever reason, I genuinely don't believe that I can help, I can just say that. I don't have to force him and make an offer to anyone. That was the biggest lever that kind of moved mine, because I kind of realized, well, like, can I help this person? And if I genuinely can, I just need to make it clear how and articulate myself well. And then if they have objections, it's either because, okay, they don't have the money, or they don't trust me enough, which means I failed in marketing because I'm got an unqualified lead here, or they haven't been nurtured enough, which means I'm maybe too aggressive with my CTAs, should have been nurtured longer. Or I just haven't articulated myself well enough because I don't understand. And I can always watch call recordings, like you said, and kind of go back and figure out what did I do wrong. Mm-hmm. And I also think a lot of people miss how powerful it is to say, look, think about it. And, if anything changes, book in another call. Because I think there is a huge amount of power in, if you have a good marketing engine going, that person's going to get nurtured anyways. And eventually, I'm sure I would be curious, like if you've seen this in your numbers, people say no. And then a month later, they come back and they're like, okay, I thought about it and I saw your stuff. Now I'm ready to go. Have you seen a lot of that happening? Because I certainly do.
100%. Yeah. And it's a very fine line to balance between like the buy or cry on the call mentality, and then also like building an actual relationship with this person. And it's like the timing might not be the best for them right now, but like they like what we do, they like the product, they know it can help them. And if it's not right now and it's like a couple months from now, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? And that's why, yeah, it's a very fine line to balance, because it's like, I want to, like on the call, I want to handle their objections, help them make that decision that I know is going to benefit them. But on the same time, like I don't want to like force anything down somebody's throat, because it's a terrible way to start a relationship that you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person as well. Because like that's when like immediately they get off the call, they feel like they were pressured into it, they get buyer's remorse, and then like a weekend they ask for a refund, right?
Yeah.
And that's not really serving anybody. But yeah, like all the time. Like for example, one of our clients just signed up this like earlier this month, a couple of weeks ago. I had a sales call with him probably like, I don't know, 3 months ago, something like that. And he's from Croatia. So the currency is not good at all. He had no income, and didn't like, had no business really, or like he was trying to start, but like no traction. And I was like, I really want to help this guy, because like he just seems like an incredible person, but his circumstances are just kind of against him right now. So I gave him some free advice on the call after. It was like very clear. It's like, doesn't have money. I don't know if I made him an offer. I might have. Just like you never know if they have access to funds or not, right? I'll let them be the judge with their wallet, rather than me making any assumptions. But anyways, it was clear that like couldn't afford it, had no money, had no access to money either. So I was like, okay, here's what you need to do to start signing your first few clients. And then between that, he pretty much binged all my YouTube videos regarding like sales, marketing, building a good offer, stuff like that. And then we kind of like had been going back and forth on Instagram in the DMs. He like asked some questions over voice notes. Like I'd reply and just kind of give him some free advice and some help and some direction there. And then all of a sudden, like last month, he did like 12 grand and then signed up with us, because like I literally helped him make the money that he needed to invest to join. And now he's making like way more as well. So I think it like one of the things that like one of the other guys on the team, Brandon, who is such an awesome person, and he also does sales and coaching as well. One of the things that I really picked up from him was like, it's like, if you can treat the prospect as if they're already a client of yours, like assuming they're a good fit, you can actually serve them, right?
Yeah.
If you view them as they're already a client and you're just kind of like coaching them to take that step and make the right decision, then like it really becomes like it shifts the frame from like you're kind of like you're fighting against them to like make the sale to like, hey, I'm in your corner. I'm like linking arms with you. I want to help you. I care about you. I want to see you succeed. It becomes like you versus them to like us versus like the one obstacle that's in the way of like them succeeding. So in this case, like with that example, it's like it was just like the finances, the money to sign up, right? So it's like, okay, how can I help this guy break down that barrier, break down that obstacle so that he can make that decision and make that leap and actually like sign up with us and start working with us because I know like we can help him scale it crazy. And I think that kind of like principle, that framework can be applied regardless of like the obstacle, regardless of the barrier. And when you come at the sales calls with that mentality and that approach, then like the way that you are perceived on the call by the prospect is going to be like way more positive than if it's clear that they're just trying to make a sale. And I see it all the time. Like people are like, man, like this just feels right. This feels good. It feels right. It doesn't feel like I'm being pressured into this. And it feels like you genuinely care and you want to serve me. You actually want to help and stuff like that. And I think that is like kind of like a cheat code to sales that isn't really talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the reason is I think there's a very difficult, because I've experienced this on calls as well, where you also have to walk that fine line from where a sales call becomes a free coaching call. And now you're just like giving advice and, then, 45 minutes is gone and you actually haven't even got to, okay, are you going to buy or not type of thing. Because I think it's really difficult to balance that. I think it's probably like one of the ways that I've started doing this is like trying to qualify as quickly as possible, because then I kind of know what I can make the rest of the call. Like if I can qualify, okay, they have money and they're a good fit, I'm going to angle it more towards like the sales side. If I can see like in the first 5 minutes, this is going to be a hard sale, I'm going to have to force it, I'll maybe take it more the coaching route. I don't know if you think that's like a good framework or if you have something different, because what I find interesting is I think you've spoken quite a lot about Jordan Belfort, and I think you've learned a lot from him. I believe there was something about a bladder, which I found quite interesting. And he is the opposite of this approach when it comes to sales. He's very much like, you got to be dialing, you got to be closing like hardcore sales. And what you just said there is very opposite. So I'm curious to see how your philosophy has shifted. And you're going to have to explain that bladder as well.
The bladder close. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, I'll get into that. Yeah, so Jordan Belfort, incredible book, Way of the Wolf. To be honest with you, I think I've only read like 3 books on sales. And like that's one of them, which is kind of funny. But it kind of just goes back to like what I was saying earlier about like if I can just practice one kick 1,000 times, get really good at that, then like there's no need to really complicate things and add a lot of complexity and learn all these other new things that just kind of confuse you. But learn a lot in that book about like tonality and stuff like that, and like kind of how to ask questions. I think like kind of the way I see it is very similar to like how I view just like life in general as well. And like one of the principles is like, if you want to be part of like the 1%, then you got to do the things that the 1% are doing. And like on the flip is like, you got to do things that the 99% are not doing. So most people in sales, the 99%, those are the guys that like very ego driven, like, oh, just chasing commission. Let's make the sale, right? Who cares about the prospect or just a number or whatever. And that's what most people that talk to sales guys experience. So I'm like, okay, if I can completely flip that switch and be on the other side of the spectrum and somebody that actually cares about this person and treats them like an actual human, which they are. And maybe this comes because I also do the fulfillment and like coach them as well. So it's like I don't want to sign somebody who I know is going to be either a terrible client, a huge pain in the ass, or somebody who can't afford it. And then like, there's just a lot of like negative pressure on the other end, or like whatever the reason might be. It's like, I don't want to start that relationship off on a bad foot, because I'll continually be working with them on the other side. Right. So that's kind of like the way I view it. So if I can be seen as completely different than most people and most experience that people have with people that do sales, then like, I think that's going to be very refreshing. And I know it would be for me too. And I kind of just like ask myself too, it's like, if I was on the other side, like, would I buy from me? If I was like being a dick and being really pushy and stuff like that, it's like, would I appreciate that? No, that would turn me right off, and I never want to talk to this person again. Right. So I think it's just like, just like be a human, you know?
Be a human.
Yeah. But yeah, we can get into the bladder close if you want to. I think that's a really funny story.
No,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, the only point that I would say with that is I genuinely think it's so true and just not spoken enough about. And I made the mistake in the past where I used to have someone doing sales who was in complete separation from fulfillment. And that's a massive mistake, because they're completely incentivized around commission and they care nothing about the fulfillment. And then there's also like a bit of dissociation. Like, I genuinely think you probably have become phenomenally better at sales because you've done the coaching. So you know what problems this person has and you can kind of interlock. Because outside of our industry, when I was in London, I had a roommate, and they were in corporate. That was my first exposure to sales, and he did corporate sales. And I remember he used to arrive at like 3 a.m. or something, because his way of sales was clients to the strip club. And like, it's the typical corporate, like company Amex card, spend as much as you want, get the client drunk, sign contracts. And it's very different to this type of thing, where it's honestly just like a solution solver or solution giver, problem solver, not really just like hardcore sales. But yes, since a lot of people I'm sure listening are here for sales, let's talk about something sales. So let's hear about the bladder close.
Sure. So this is a really funny story, and honestly, it's something that like a lot of people like know me for, which is I find hilarious. So this was earlier this year. I was talking to my fitness coach, and we were driving. I think we were coming back from like getting a workout in. And we were just kind of talking about sales, because he just started like his online fitness coaching business, and I've kind of been giving him some advice and pointers and stuff like that. But anyways, he was telling me about this, like, he's like, dude, he's like, oh yeah, like the oldest trick in the car salesman's book is like, it's like every car that I've ever bought, they've hit me with this. Like, when you get to that point where like, you know all the facts, you have all the information, they've presented the offer, you know the price and everything like that, and you're kind of just on the fence, and you're like, do I do it or do I not? He's like, they always just give you that separation, they detach, and they say like, cool, well, I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. Like, I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'll be back in a few minutes, or I'm going to go talk to whoever. Right. And then like, when I get back, you can have a decision for me. Does that sound good? And then he kind of like, that's essentially it. And he was telling me this. I'm like, no shit. I'm like, dude, I literally did this twice last week. I'm like, I closed a 25K deal literally doing this. And then like another one as well. And I think I did it on the same day. That was like I think I did like 41K cash that day. And I used the bladder close without even knowing what it was. Literally just because I drink a lot of water and I work out in the mornings, and like, I actually had to go. And I couldn't wait. And then all of a sudden, like, Kyle tells me about that. I was like, wow. I'm like, I literally did that twice last week, and it worked both times, and they signed up. And then I was like, no way. So then on a coaching call that I did with I don't know, I think like 50 of our clients hopped on for it. I was just kind of doing like a 2-hour breakdown of that 41K day. And I told them about this tactic, like this new thing that I just discovered that I had 100% closing rate with. And since then too, I tried it like a few more times on some other calls. and it worked every single time. So it was like 100% closing rate on like 4 or 5 sales, which was like, I was like kind of blown away. And then somebody in the comments, I think on Zoom, I forget who it was, called it the bladder close, just like as a joke. And then that kind of, that coined the bladder close.
And that stuck.
And it stuck. And then I was like, and then right after that call, one of our clients had a sales call and he used the bladder close and he signed up, like he signed the client up, and he dropped that in like the wins channel. He said, yo, like just try the bladder close. Like it worked. And then like a couple hours later, another client used it. They signed the client as well. And then I ended up actually buying both of them, The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort, the book, shipped it out to them. I was like, you guys are awesome. Like for actually using this, and it worked. And I thought it was just kind of pretty cool. And then since then, a lot of people have like kind of taken that and like coined it as like their own clothes and stuff like that. And they're killing it. I find it just hilarious. But yeah, it's essentially like, it's so powerful. It's so subtle, but so powerful, because like when you get to that point where they're kind of like, they're on the fence, they know that they kind of need to make the decision. They know it's going to help them, but then they're kind of scared because it's like a lot of money and like whatever. They're like, they just kind of, maybe they hit you with like, I need to think about it or something like that. And like, you really just cover all the grounds, you explore like, okay, well, like does it seem like it's something that would help? And like, you kind of like make sure that it's like, it's not like an uncertainty thing in like the product or like whatever. It's just like, they just kind of need to make that decision and they don't want to feel pressured or whatever. And like, they say, hey, I got to run to the bathroom real quick before my next call coming up in 10 minutes. Like, do you mind if I just like, I go to the bathroom, I'll be back in like, 3-4 minutes. And then when I get back, you can have a decision for me. Does that sound good? And then they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So then you kind of give them time to, like, you kind of give them time and space, reduce, like kind of take all the pressure out of the room, so to say. Give them some time to think about it. Give them some time to like, to think about it. But then you also like set that clear deadline of like, you need to make a decision in the next 3 or 4 minutes, rather than like, oh, let's have a follow-up call. Oh, I'll let you know by Friday, right? Because like we all know that they're going to talk themselves out of it. So it serves them in that way, but it also like starts the relationship off a lot better because they feel like they're making an empowered decision on their own rather than being like forced or pressured into making a decision. People feel that, if they sense that, then they're gonna be like, oh, my intuition's telling me that this is kind of scary. There's pressure here. Then like their fear kind of kicks in. So then there's like, they don't make the decision. So you can kind of like release that, then it just like helps them do that. And this works with like people that are like the sole decision maker. The first time I used it was with 2 partners on the call. So this was crazy. It was like my first call was with just one of them. And at the very end of the call, he told me that like, okay, I need to talk this over with my partner. And I was like, oh,
yeah, that's the silver bullet.
Yeah. So then we set up a follow-up call for the partner to be on as well. So there's 3 of us, and the partner didn't watch the call recording before the call. I should have ended it there, set up another call. Like, hey, watch the recording before, otherwise we're just wasting our time here. But anyways, partner 1 that I spoke with before was 100% sold. He loved it. But then partner 2 had no idea who I was, had no idea what we talked about before, and was super skeptical, hesitant, and just like asking all these questions, just like kind of like grilling me and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I totally butchered this. Like this, there's no way this is going to close. And I think it was like a 25K deal as well. So it was like a good size. And anyways, after I like answered her questions in a really good way and kind of got down to like the decision point, I hit them with that. And I went, like I put my computer on mute, kept my webcam on so like you could see that I wasn't physically here. And then I went to the bathroom. I came back, and like before I like came around the corner, I could hear them just like going back and forth. He was trying to convince her on like why it would work, and then like whatever. So I just kind of like hung out there for a few minutes and just like listened and kind of let partner 1 do the selling for me. And then when I came back, they decided to go for it, because partner one was able to sell partner two for me because I gave them that space. So there's a bit of a hack there. If you guys, if anyone listening talks to a lot of partners and runs into that.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. I think I have like a sales call in like an hour. So I might try it just to see how it goes. Amazing. So since we are in the trenches, the way I want to end off all these podcasts is with 3 rapid fire questions. And I'm kind of sort of playing with the idea of keeping them the same for each guest. And it'll be interesting to see the differences in their answers. So are you ready? 3 questions, quick answers.
Let's hit it.
Cool. Question 1. What do you know now that you wish you knew earlier when you were just starting?
I think that as long as you don't stop moving forward and you continue to work on yourself, then like the external will kind of catch up to it. So like what I didn't know back then was that like I thought that I could just make 10K a month by just like working really hard, like doing the actual things. But it's like, in order to actually get there and achieve your goals, like it's just a reflection of who you are internally. So like the real growth starts internally and then it just reflects externally.
So true. Inner work always precedes outer work. Amazing. Question 2. What do you see as the biggest opportunity in the market right now? Because I know you see a lot of niches and services, and I always get that question: what niche should I be in? What service should I offer? What do you see as the biggest opportunity in the marketplace at the moment?
I think going off of like the fact that I hear this as like the most common problem on like hundreds of sales calls is like people hate doing prospecting themselves. So if you can like automate prospecting and just like help people book qualified, warmed up leads on the calendar to like 2 to 5 a day consistently, predictably, then like you're gonna be making millions. So I think that like that's the opportunity is 100%.
Okay, that's interesting. And you mentioned you're working on some projects at the moment. I think you said a CRM was one of them. So out of everything that you're working on now, maybe you have something secret coming that's launching soon. But what's making you the most excited? Like, what are you working on that you're most proud of at the moment?
I think right now, like figuring out how we can really like deliver the best service to our clients and like make it just like absolutely unquestionable that we 100 like we just have this like proven system, just go through it, follow it, make it really hard not to succeed. And like that's what's going to separate you from the crowd like over the next few years, 100%. So with that, like a lot of the things that like we only really teach our clients the stuff that we actually do and know that works. So I think just like experimenting with some stuff like that is gonna be really cool. Like for example, a few months ago, I started testing some Instagram ads and I had no idea if it was gonna work or not. Trey didn't really think it was, but he was like, dude, you can like go for it anyways. Here's some money you can spend on ads. So I was like, sweet. And then all of a sudden, after a few months, consistently turning $1 into $6. And now like we're helping some of our clients like roll that out that are in like the higher level mastermind. So like that's one thing that's really cool. Another thing kind of right now is like a low ticket offer. If we can just like sell like a low ticket course to break even on front end ad spend and then build a huge pool, build a huge audience that's gone through this course, that's warmed up to us, it knows us, likes us, trusts us, and kind of pull them in and upsell them into like one of the other programs, then like you get free eyeballs on the front end. In like kind of the middle of the funnel, they're warmed up, they're nurtured already because now they actually like have consumed your content. And then that makes the sale much easier as well because there's already that fundamental relationship. So that's something very new that we've just launched like in the last month. So that's something super fun and super challenging, but also really interesting. And we'll see how it goes.
Challenging is always good, and I'm sure you'll kill it. I mean, you have experience running ads as well, so I think that makes life easy. But on that note, I think that's a wrap for episode 1. Jeremy, thank you for your time. And to everyone listening or watching, cheers for watching. Subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, pretty much everywhere. And we'll see you in the next episode. Right, so that's a wrap for this episode. Cheers for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, I went ahead and picked another one of my videos, which you should be able to watch right now. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.